May 23rd, 2023, Daily Bread. Passage, Luke chapter 9, verses 10 through 17, key verse 13. Title, You Give Them Something to Eat. When the apostles returned, they reported to Jesus what they had done. Then he took them with him, and they withdrew by themselves to a town called Bethsaida. But the crowds learned about it and followed him. He welcomed them and spoke to them about the kingdom of God, and healed those who needed healing. Late in the afternoon, the 12 came to him and said, Send the crowd away, so they can go to the surrounding villages and countryside, and find food and lodging, because we are in a remote place. He replied, You give them something to eat. They answered, We have only 5 loaves of bread and 2 fish, unless we go and buy food for all this crowd. About 5,000 men were there. But he said to his disciples, Have them sit down in groups of about 50 each. The disciples did so, and everyone sat down. Taking the 5 loaves and the 2 fish, and looking up to heaven, he gave thanks and broke them. Then he gave them to the disciples to distribute to the people. They all ate and were satisfied, and the disciples picked up 12 basketfuls of broken pieces that were left over. Daily Bread Message. The apostles returned from their first preaching journey. Jesus withdrew with them to Bethsaida to give them a mini vacation. But a crowd of 5,000 followed Jesus even to the site. Jesus did not turn them away. Instead, he welcomed them and served them through his teaching and healing. Jesus served them not out of obligation or habit, but out of his shepherd's heart. Jesus saw their needs and gave them more than what he had planned. One who has a shepherd's heart can see the needs of others and is not afraid of self-sacrifice to welcome and serve them. Sometime later, the disciples told Jesus to send the crowds away to find food and lodging. To their realistic suggestion, Jesus said, You give them something to eat. Jesus wanted them to learn a few lessons in faith, as they would somehow feed the crowds. The disciples had only 5 loaves and 2 fish, but Jesus blessed what they brought, and with it fed the crowd. Jesus wanted the disciples to learn that God can multiply anything they would give him for more than what they could imagine. God can multiply and use our talents, time, and materials greatly when we give them to him in faith. Prayer. Lord, my resources are meager, but take my 5 loaves and 2 fish and use them for your feeding work. One word, Jesus multiplies.